To be an American represents the will of the people, the consent of the governed. Being American is to strive for people. It's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as our founding fathers envisioned, and the pursuit of improving upon that system, doing away with the bad and building upon the good. Then you can get into the granular and say a core tenet of this country has always been individuality, meritocracy, personal responsibility. I'll leave it there. Otherwise, I'm going to go on for an hour.
Well, I mean, we could go on for days about it, but so just pick up off two strands of what you said there. Okay, American identity is a complicated thing. One of the things that you said in the first part of that answer is the individual, but tying it into a whole that's greater than some of its parts.
That's the biggest thing for me.
And that's the conflict. It's not a conflict, but that's the tension at the heart of the American identity that causes us to struggle with this, because there's part of each of us that wants to be the individualist, the rugged individual pursuing our version of the American dream, best manifest through free market capitalism. And you know what? Republicans and conservatives like to lean into that. Like, that's the part, the rugged individual. That's me. And I've lived that dream. I mean, that's important to me. It's important to you. It's a big part of what it means to be American. But we don't admit often what the other side embraces. They reject the rugged individual and say there's this collectivist identity, and what it means to be American is a member of this collective. And I think the unique thing about what it means to be American is it's both of those things at once: individualism and unity. Right? The American dream, capitalism, and being part of a self-governing constitutional republic.
Yep.
Both of those are what it means to be American, and they run roughshod over each other from time to time. I don't know if I ever told you my story, but after I was running a multi-billion-dollar company, George Floyd's tragic death plays out, and it was a tragic death, but there was a demand that I make a statement on behalf of Black Lives Matter. I refused to do it. Led to a series of events that I describe in Woke Inc. 6 months later, a bunch of prominent advisors to my company resign. I say, look, I have a choice. I'm either going to speak my mind freely, or I'm going to speak through the filter of corporate self-interest.
What did your company do?
We made medicines. We developed drugs. Yeah.
A pharmaceutical?
Yeah, so like five of these.
And they wanted you to comment on racial politics.
Yeah, about Black Lives Matter specifically.
You're like, guys, we make aspirin. I don't know.
Yeah, actually, it was an innovative company where we were developing. So one of them is a life-saving therapy for about 20 kids born each year with this disease. They're born without a particular part of their body that relates to their immune system. All 20 of those kids would have died by the age of 3. And with a therapy developed in partnership with Duke University, a majority of those kids are able to live lives of a more normal duration.
But how does that stop racism?
Exactly. Like that was the point that landed on my doorstep. And so after the George Floyd protest, what did I say? I said that, look, whether you're black or white, or whether you're whatever your views are on this, I'm proud to work on saving people's lives, something that can unite us and is a worthy purpose regardless. And what I was told is that didn't meet the moment. That was tone deaf. and anyway, that led to a series of events that actually I wrote an op-ed the following January in the Wall Street Journal. So this was with a former law professor of mine. So I have a background in science. I ended up, I have a background in law as well. But just a former law professor of mine in my personal capacity, nothing to do with the company, wrote a piece making the case that big tech companies, when they engage in censorship at behest of the government, that it actually was bound by the First Amendment. It was like a nerdy academic argument. And I know conservatives, this has since become popularized in the last several years after I made this argument. This was the first time that argument was really made. And so anyway, after I wrote that piece, I kid you not, now this is in the wake of January 6th, 2 years ago, multiple advisors to the company resigned within a 48-hour period. And for me, that was the wake-up call.
But why? Were they scared?
Because this was inappropriate. Companies have a responsibility to play. Corporate leaders. This was irresponsible speech on my behalf. It was I'm not even kidding you. Threats to our democracy. That was in one of the emails that I got, that I'm fueling and fostering those threats. And so I had to look in the mirror, and I had to face a choice, right? Was I going to speak freely as a citizen, or was I going to speak through the filter of corporate self-interest? And to be honest, it was a multi-billion-dollar company I had built. I'm not going to have to work a day in my life if I don't want to. If I wasn't free to speak my mind, imagine if everyday Americans who have to worry about putting food on the dinner table, what choice they face. So I made the choice and said, you know what? I'm going to speak freely as a citizen, step aside from my job as a biotech CEO, led me to the final stages of writing Woke Inc., published that book and published these other books. Actually, what's going on in the American left is a big part of what's going on across the country is that you have a lot of people who are hungry for a cause, hungry for purpose and meaning and identity. The things that human beings have always been hungry for, by the way, but they're not filling that hunger anymore with, pick your favorite value, faith, God, patriotism, national identity.
Adventure,
a sense of even hard work, actually. I mean, look at you. I mean, you've created something here, right? In my life, it looks very different, but I've created things. You build something with your hands. Whatever it is, you work hard and create something. That's a source of identity. Your family, when those things disappear, you have this black hole of a vacuum, believing in a quasi-religious structure, which is what the trans movement is all about, or the woke movement, or the climate movement, or the COVID movement. That's touching a place in your heart that you were long missing. And healthcare policy or economic policy doesn't do that. So that explains, I think, the distinction you see when you abandon the religious structure that otherwise gave them that sense of security that they were missing. If you rip that away and take that away, that's actually why you get the reaction that you do. There's something even more going on, because temporarily you can fill that void with a hunt for civil rights, right? A hunt for human rights. That's a big part of what occupied this movement even since the 60s. Since the 70s, is to say that, okay, even if I don't believe in those things, I can fight for secular justice, okay, rights and equality. Here's the real problem that's going on in the year 2022 or 2023 or 2015, is that then they lost that too. Why did they lose that? Because we got to their promised land.
Yep.
And it is precisely then that we reach this culture of vehemence with gender identity itself being the new obsession. It's because when you run out of human rights and civil rights to stand for, you have to find new ones instead, because you don't have God, you don't have country. Right. So then you took my civil rights struggle away too, now I'm going to make one. So I drew this analogy where it's like the equivalent, when you think about whatever it is, to take alleged racism in the United States, right? There was a point in time, certainly 1870, Reconstruction in this country, where there was a justified, comprehensive societal response we needed to mount against actual systemic racism that we fought a civil war in this country, among other things, to overcome. That moment has long passed. And so what you see right now is the activation of an overactive hyperimmune response that's trying to clear a virus that's already well below the limit of detection. Am I saying there's none of it left? No, but it's in the bloodstream, but it's like, you're not going to detect it. Yep. You may as well watch it wither away to irrelevance. But if you mount a comprehensive immune response after the virus itself is gone, actually, I don't know if people know this, that's actually how people die in the hospital of COVID. You get acute respiratory distress syndrome. Right. Long after the virus is gone, your immune system is still attacking your bodily organs. That's how you actually die. And I think that's the equivalent of what's going on in the so-called woke movement in this country is once the thing disappears, you don't even have a virus left to attack. You're just attacking and killing the host itself. That host is our
country. Exactly it.
And so how do we fix that? Right? That is the question for the House. That is why I'm running for president. I think I'm the best. I mean, look, I wouldn't be doing this if I thought that somebody else was able to actually take on this challenge of our time. I don't think that the rest of the conservative movement, there's different flavors of it, are quite up to that task in this moment. That is the work ahead of us. Can we do it? I'm raising my hand and giving it a try.
I look forward to you saying everything you just said to these other people on stage and to the American people, because it needs to be brought up in the conversation as we're moving forward in terms of who becomes president.